Hello, I'll be reading from William Butler Yeats' The Second Coming. The ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. I chose to emphasize the words drowned, all, and passionate because I felt that they had a very powerful impact and that they really dominated these lines. And when I read those words aloud, it really made me feel like I was a president, like giving a speech or announcing something, calling for action and awareness, yet assurance. And I think this was intended as Yeats believed that we're supposed to try to resist these terrors he's describing in the poem and look forward to renewing ourselves. The three elements I chose to focus on were lexical, historical, and stylistic. Lexical specifically because I noticed his unique choice of words in these lines, which includes best and worst and passionate and lacking conviction. And these stuck out to me because these are opposites. I know Yeats found that it was the poet's responsibility to show the fragmented world in a unified vision, which I think is why he included these opposites. And it's also reminiscent of what Coleridge tried to do in his work. And Yeats was known not to reject romanticism because he felt a duty to renew it. For the historical element, during this time, modernists tried really hard to replace the Christian belief system as it had collapsed, and it became difficult to assume that it still unified England in the way it once did. And in many cases, these writers returned to Christianity to find meaning and to explore that in their writing. This poem specifically was supposed to reinforce Yeats's myth about gyres and symbolize the ending and represent the ending of that era where Christianity dominated everyday life, and having a kind of violent and destructive transition into the new age. But these lines specifically is supposed to show the ending in an almost apocalyptic way. As for the stylistic element, when I was reading these lines, I just saw images of like chaos, like a downfall. Like for some reason I saw like colosseums falling apart, and then I saw like a white marble fountain like spewing blood, which is kind of graphic, but in the line before it says the blood-thin tide is loosed and everywhere, which is probably why the image came to mind. And I think this was intentional because it was supposed to represent the ending of an era, a hopeless view towards the new one, and the destructive nature this piece carries is supposed to represent the world changing and transitioning into the next gyre. I would say recitation has helped me understand Yeats's philosophy about gyres, or the 2,000-year cycle, in which you believe there's 1,000 years of growth and 1,000 years of destruction. To be honest, when I read that, I kind of thought, it was a little extreme, but a little left field. But after seeing the imagery these lines made me see, and thinking about his assigned duty as a poet, and analyzing this poem, it made me kind of think about how we as humans in general tend to think in these phases and how much it surrounds us in our everyday life, anything from like weather to days of the week. It made me think about how much of an impact that probably had on writers during his time, because there was so much that was changing and going on. It probably wouldn't have been crazy to like think in these terms. And it's not crazy either when we think about how much Christianity places emphasis on things like rebirth or like death or ending, considering that a lot of inspiration for these myths are drawn from Christianity. Ultimately, I think Yeats was just trying to examine the world around him in order to find some sort of explanation in an age where everything felt meaningless. And I guess to help us ponder the questions as well, instead of focusing on individual answers or ultimate answers in general.